key tool in the Lean Launchpad process is to understand the business ecosystem of your product or service. And that's referring to the interaction of the many players and institutions that may be affecting your customer as they experience their problems, as well as your solution and the decision to either purchase it or use it. So remember that customers here are not just the people that pay you money. A customer is either a person or organization with an interest or concern in something related to your product or service. It could be the end users, but it may also be your competitors, which is kind of a counterintuitive idea, or your suppliers, or the regulators in your industry, or broader members of the community. The broad set of people who have an interest in what you are doing. A business ecosystem focuses in on the interactions in the network of stakeholders. And so suppliers, distributors, customers, competitors, even government agencies have a role to play here. In some way, they affect the delivery and the decision process related to your product or service, not just by cooperating with you, but they may also affect you by competing with you. And so a core thing to understand is those interactions. How do you map this out? And this is where you look at what your core task or process is, generally from an end user perspective. Who are the various players involved? And then start to map out what connects them. It might be flow of information. It might be flow of products. It might or raw materials, or it might be the flow of money. What I'd like to do now is show you how to build out an ecosystem. And let's remember what an ecosystem is composed of. It's all the stakeholders who are in some way involved in the delivery of your product or service. So obviously that's going to include your customers, but it will also include other distributors, regulators, all kinds of people that you wouldn't necessarily think of at the very beginning when you think about who are all the stakeholders in your ecosystem. And obviously, another key player are your set of competitors. So let's start thinking about a very simple situation. Let's think about a family shopping. And we have a little girl, just imagine a little girl, whose eye has been caught by a box of crackers. And she's saying, I want these crackers. And on one level you say, well, that's simple. It's the consumer, and that's everybody in my ecosystem. But in fact, there are a lot more players. So obviously, if they're at the store, there's a retailer. And in addition, the retailer had to get the product from somebody, so chances are there's a distributor in the mix. And if you think back even further, if you are a relatively small maker of crackers, chances are you are hiring a different company to actually, that's a co-packer, to actually package your product, and then also maybe a contract manufacturer. But think about broader ecosystem. Somewhere out there you have competitors. And because it's food, there are a lot of regulators who care about the safety of what you're doing. And if you're making any kinds of promises about your food, whether it's about the caloric value or perhaps the health value, then you have to follow certain regulations for that as well. Now, these might be the entities, but these are not names of people that you can talk to. Sometimes it's helpful to go even deeper and think about the roles within each of these organizations. So the child might have a very different perspective from the parents. Inside the retailer, you might have a buyer, but you'll also have the person that determines the store layout or planograms. Distributors have both a senior decision maker who decides what products are they actually going to represent, but they're also going to have individual representatives who actually go out to the retailers to sell your product. Meanwhile, even though you might think of the contract manufacturer and the co-packer as your suppliers, meaning you're their customer, in fact, in both cases, they get to decide who they're doing business with. And there'll be some sort of liaison inside of those organizations. But there's even one more factor in here, and that may include people who are not in this chain at all, but influence this family. And so sometimes you'll just use this broad term, influencer. And they might be on social media. People who tell other people what they like and how and in what way it benefits them might be driving what that little girl is interested in.